If you're just getting started with your hand embroidery journey, there's a few key things that you'll need to know before you even thread the needle. In this tutorial, we'll be going over hand embroidery beginner basics. I'll be using the Happy Rainbow Stitch Sampler template throughout this series. I designed this free template to be a fun and easy way to learn basic hand embroidery stitches. If you'd like to follow along with me and use this exact template, head over to my Stan store where you can download this PDF template for free. Now, let's go over basic tools you'll need to get started with hand embroidery. First and foremost, you'll need a 6 or 8 inch hand embroidery hoop. I prefer square hoops, but round ones work just as well. Some thread scissors, which are smaller than fabric cutting scissors, a needle threader for easy threading, an embroidery needle, either size 8 or 10 works, and you'll also want something to measure your fabric, such as a ruler or a measuring tape. And then to cut your fabric, you'll need either a pair of fabric scissors or pinking shears. I prefer pinking shears because it reduces the fray on the edges of your fabric, but use whatever you've got. And for any project, you'll also need some fabric. I'm using a relatively heavy white cotton with a somewhat loose weave for the top fabric and a lighter weight white cotton with a lighter weave for the bottom fabric. Both pieces of fabric should be cut to approximately 12 by 12 inches. And for the majority of the projects you'll see here on my channel, I use this sticky water-soluble paper stabilizer by Craftido. I'm not sponsored by Craftido, I just absolutely love this product. And in my opinion, it's the best method for transferring printable patterns onto fabric. It's super easy to use, just follow the directions on the packaging. Now that you've gotten all your supplies together, we're ready to get started with the prep process. First, cut out both pieces of fabric. Remember, you'll need a top and a bottom piece of fabric. I typically get my fabric secondhand, so I'm not going to mention any specific brands, but you should choose fabric that's well made and feels good in your hands. Use either scissors or pinking shears, if you have them, to cut squares that are approximately 12 inches by 12 inches. This doesn't need to be exact or even straight because we'll cut away the excess fabric once we're finished. I should also mention that if your fabric is really wrinkled, you'll want to iron it, but if it's just a little wrinkly, that won't matter so much once the fabric is installed into the hoop. Once you've gotten your top and bottom pieces of fabric cut out, you'll have to decide if it needs to be ironed or not. I opted to not iron these pieces to show you what it would look like if you skip the ironing process. Next, we're going to load the paper stabilizer paper into your printer. I'd advise doing a test print on a regular piece of paper first so you know which way to load the paper stabilizer. Once you figure that out, print out the template. Then you'll cut away any excess paper stabilizer, being careful not to cut into the pattern. You'll also notice that I printed a couple of extra templates on this sheet. I guess you could call this a teaser for one of my projects that's in the pipeline. I should also mention that you'll want to use your fabric scissors to cut out this template. I don't recommend using the pinking shears or thread scissors for this application. Now we're ready to stick the template onto the fabric. Lay your top piece of fabric on a flat surface and make sure to remove any lingering pieces of thread or cat hair. Now you're going to want to peel off the release sheet from the paper stabilizer. This is the back piece of paper on the stabilizer that you'll just have to throw away afterwards. And unfortunately, while I was filming this, I got a little interrupted by my cat and had to start this all over again. Mango Spice, get out of there. Okay, so now that my cat is out of the filming table, we can stick the template onto the fabric. Easy peasy. Make sure that the template lies flat and is completely stuck to the fabric, adding a little pressure with your hands if necessary. Now we'll move on to installing the fabric onto the embroidery hoop. To install your fabric onto your embroidery hoop, you'll first need to unscrew the adjuster screw at the top. You should be able to unscrew it with just your hands. For these square hoops, the screw must be completely removed, but you may be able to keep the screw inserted into the holder depending on the type of hoop you have. The inner part of the hoop is solid square or circle, while the outer part holds the adjuster screw and is a little bit larger. With the inner hoop on the flat surface, place the bottom and then the top pieces of fabric directly onto the hoop. Make sure that the template is facing up towards you and it's centered on the hoop itself. Next, we're going to make a sandwich. Place the outer hoop over the fabric and the inner hoop, sandwiching the fabric between the two hoops. Reinsert the adjuster screw and turn it clockwise enough so that the outer hoop starts to tighten on the inner hoop. Now here's the tricky part. You want to pull the fabric taut while tightening the adjuster screw. Slowly move around the hoop while pulling the fabric taut with your thumb and forefingers. Turning the adjuster screw clockwise will tighten the hoops tighter and prevent the fabric from moving. When your fabric is completely tight, make sure the adjuster screw is screwed in as much as possible. With some hoops, including the one that I'm using here, you may need a small flathead screwdriver to get the screw tight enough so that your fabric won't move around. When you're finished, give your hoop and fabric one last check to make sure you're happy with the template location and the tightness. Now that we've gotten the fabric securely installed in your hand embroidery hoop, we're ready to move on to the fun stuff. If you're using a kit, your embroidery floss will come pre-selected, but if you're embroidering something that's self-drafted or you bought a template or design online, you'll likely have to choose your own floss and colors. In the case of the Happy Rainbow Stitch Sampler, I've designed this template to be incredibly bright and colorful. We'll be using DMC 6-strand embroidery floss in pink, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, 2 different pinks, a light and a darker pink, and a teal. If you'd like suggested DMC color codes, they're listed in my free PDF guide. I should also mention here that if you're new to embroidery and just getting started, floss typically comes in a skein like this and will need to be carded manually. Simply unwind the skein and wrap the floss around the card, evenly distributing the floss onto the card. Next, we're going to thread the needle. You'll need your needle, your needle threader, and floss. Most embroidery floss are comprised of 6 strands of loosely twisted thread. For many projects, you only embroider with 1, 2, or 3 strands of thread at a time. For the majority of this project, we're going to be using 2 strands of thread at once. Start by cutting off about 1.5 feet or 18 inches of floss from the skein. Then separate the individual threads. This can be a little difficult until you've gotten the hang of it, as the thread likes to get all knotted and tangled up together. Be patient and pull either 2 pieces of thread away from the other 4 strands at one time, or remove each thread individually. Now let's use the needle threader to thread the needle. With your needle threader in one hand and your needle in the other, slip the needle eye over the small wire hoop of the threader. Then thread the 2 strands of floss through the threader hoop. Slowly pull the needle towards the thread and off the wire hoop. The thread should be through the eye of the needle now. Ensure that the 2 strands of thread are even together and that you have about 4 to 5 inches of thread doubling back away from the eye of the needle. This will ensure that the thread won't fall off the needle when you're embroidering. Thanks so much for following along with me today. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and the next part of the Happy Rainbow Stitch Sampler tutorial will be coming out soon, and we'll be going over hand embroidery finishing techniques. Thanks again, and remember, done is better than perfect.